Hello students of Standard 10. Welcome to the e-learning classes of DAV Moyle Public School. Subject Science. Our today's topic is our environment. We have heard the word environment often being used on the televisions, in newspaper and by people around us. Our elders tells us that the environment is not what it is used to be earlier. Others says that we should work in an healthy environment, and global summits involving the development and developing countries are regularly held to discuss environmental issues. In this topic, we shall be studying how various components in the environment interact with each other and how we impact the environment. Ecosystem. What are its components? All organisms such as plants, animals, microorganisms and human beings as well as the physical surrounding interact with each other and maintain a balance in nature. All the interacting organisms in an area together with the non-living constituents of the environment form an ecosystem. Thus an ecosystem consists of biotic components comprising living organisms and abiotic components comprising physical factors like temperature, rainfall, wind, soil, and minerals. For example, if you visit a garden, you will find different plants such as grasses, trees, flowers, bearing plants like rose, jasmine, sunflower, and animals like frog, insects, and birds. All these living organisms interact with each other and their growth, reproduction and other activities are affected by the abiotic components of ecosystem. So a garden in an ecosystem. Other types of ecosystem are forests, ponds and lake. These are natural ecosystems while garden and crop fields are human-made ecosystem. We have seen in earlier classes that organisms can be grouped as producers, consumers, and decomposers according to the manner in which they obtain their substances from the environment. Let us recall what we have learned through the self-sustaining ecosystem created by us above, which organisms can make organic compounds like sugar and starch from inorganic substances using the radiant energy of sun in the presence of chlorophyll. All the green plants and certain bacteria which are produced food by the photosynthesis come under this category and are called producers. Organisms depend on the producers either directly or indirectly from their surrounding substances. These organisms which consume the food produced either directly from producers or indirectly by feeding on other consumers are the consumers. Consumers can be classified variously as herbivorous, carnivorous, omnivorous and parasites. You can see example for each of these categories of consumers. Imagine the situation where you do not clean the aquarium and some fish and plants have died. Have you ever thought what bacteria and fungi break down on the dead remains and waste produced of organisms? These microorganisms are the decomposers as they break down the complex organic substance into simple organic substance that go into the soil and are used up once more by plants. What will happen to the garbage and dead animals and plants in their absence? Will the nature replenished of the soil take place even if decomposers are not there? Food chain and food webs. Look at the given image. We have formed a series of organisms feeding on one another. This series of organisms taking part at various biotic levels form a food chain. Each step or level of the food chain forms a trophic level. Each trophic or autotrophs or the producers are at the first trophic level. They fix up the solar energy and make it available for heterotrophs or the consumers. The herbivorous or the primary consumers come at the second, small carnivorous or the secondary consumers at the third, and the large carnivorous or tertiary consumers forms the fourth trophic level. We know that the food we eat acts as a fuel to produce us energy to do work. Thus, the interactions among various components of the environment involves flow of energy from one component of the system to another. As we have studied, the autotrophs captured the energy present in sunlight and convert it into chemical energy. This energy supports all the activities of the living world. From autotrophs, the energy goes to the heterotrophs and decomposers. However, as we saw in the previous chapter of sources of energy, when one form of energy is changed to another, some energy is lost to the environment in forms which cannot be used again. The flow of energy between various components of the environment has been extensively studied, and it has been found that the green plants in an terrestrial ecosystem captures about 1% of the energy of sunlight that falls off their leaves and convert it into food energy. When green plants are eaten by primary consumers, a great deal of energy is lost as heat to the environment. Some amount of energy goes as heat to convert into digestions and in doing work, and the rest goes towards growth and reproduction. An average of 10% of the food eaten is turned into its own food and made available for the next level of consumers. Therefore, 10% can be taken as the average value of the amount of organic matters that is present at each step and reach the next level of consumers. Since so little energy is available for the next level of consumers, food chain generally consists of only 3 or 4 steps. The loss of energy at each step is so great that very little usable energy remains after 4 trophic levels. There are generally a great number of individuals at the lower trophic levels of an ecosystem. The greatest number is of the producers. The length and complexity of food chain vary greatly. Each organism is generally eaten by 2 or more other kind of organisms, which in turns are eaten by several other organisms. So instead of a straight line food chain, the relationship can be shown as a series of branching lines called a food web. From the energy flow diagram, two things become clear. Firstly, the flow of energy is unidirectional. The energy that is captured by the autotrophs does not convert back to the solar input, and the energy which passes to the herbivores does not come back through the various trophic levels. It is no longer available to the previous levels. Secondary themselves, the energy available at each trophic levels get dismissed progressively due to loss of energy at each levels. Another interesting aspect of food chain is how unknowingly some harmful chemicals enter our body through the food chains. You have read in previous class that how water gets polluted. One of the reasons is the use of several pesticides and other chemicals to protect our crops from disease and pest. These chemicals are either washed down into the soil or into the water bodies from the soil. These are absorbed by the plants along with water and minerals, and plants forms the bodies. These are taken up by aquatic plants and animals. This is one of the way in which they enter the food chain. As these chemicals are not degradable, these get accumulated progressively at each trophic levels. As human beings occupy the top level of any food chain, the maximum concentration of these chemicals get accumulated in our bodies. This phenomenon is known as biological magnification. This is the reason why our food chains such as wheat, rice, vegetables, and fruits, and even meat contain varying amount of pesticide residues. They cannot always be removed by washing or other methods or means. How do our activities affect the environment? We are an integral part of the environment. Changes in the environment affect us, and our activities change the environment around us. We already know that various activities pollute the environment. In this topic, we shall be looking at two of the environmental problems in details, that is, the depletion of ozone layer and the waste disposal. What is ozone layer and how is it getting depleted? Ozone O3 is a molecule formed by the three atoms of oxygen, while O2, which we normally refers to as oxygen, is essential for all aerobic forms of life. Ozone is a deadly poison. However, at the higher levels of the atmosphere, ozone performs an essential function. It shields the surface of Earth from ultraviolet radiations from the sun. This radiation is highly damaging to organisms. For example, it is known as cause skin cancer in human beings. Ozone at the higher levels of the atmosphere is a product of ultraviolet radiations acting on oxygen molecule. The higher energy of ultraviolet radiation splits apart some molecule oxygens into free oxygen atoms. The amount of ozone in the atmosphere began to drop sharply in 1980. The decrease has been linked to synthetic chemicals like chlorofluorocarbons, which is also known as CFCs, which are used as refrigerants and in the fire extinguishers. In 1987, the United Nations Environment Programme, that is UNEP, succeeded in forging an agreement to freeze CFC products at 1986 levels. It is now mandatory for all the manufacturing companies to make CFC-free refrigerators throughout the world. Managing the garbage we produce. In our daily activities, we generate a lot of materials that are thrown away. What are some of these waste materials? What happens after we throw them away? As we have seen in the chapter on life process that the food we eat is digested by various enzymes in our body. Have you ever wondered why the same energy does not break down everything we eat? Enzymes are specific in their actions. Specific enzymes are needed for the breakdown of a particular substance. That is why we will not get any energy if we try to eat coal. Because of this, many human made materials like plastics will not be broken down by the action of bacteria or other spirophytes, that is saprophytes. These materials will be acted upon by physical processes like heat and pressure, but under amendment conditions found in our environment, this persists for a long time. Substances that are broken down by biological processes are said to be biodegradable. Substances that are not broken down in the matter are said to be non-biodegradable. These substances may be inert and simply persist in the environment for a longer time or may harm the various members of our ecosystem. Now it's time to check your knowledge about today's topic. Here are some questions as your assignment. I hope you understand today's topic. We again meet with new video. Till then, stay at home, be safe, be happy.